everyone, and welcome again to Games and Gear, where games both old and new are discussed. This week's episode is going to be a breeze because I'm going to talk about a topic that I know very well. I'm sure, as a lot of you would know, I happen to be a huge fan of the Muppets. They were one of the major things growing up. I even have some of the movies and TV shows on DVD. Okay, now you're probably wondering, what does this have to do with video games? Well, to answer your question, there's been a lot of video games that feature the Muppets, and so for this week's episode, I'm going to talk about some of the Muppet video games that I know. As Kermit the Frog would say, let's get things started, yay! Okay, I think I might have overdid with that one.
Whoa! Muppet Racemania! Race through 6 movies and 28 tracks. Stunt courses, battle modes, even an adventure mode. Choose from over 20 Muppets and 20 cars. So much game to play, you gotta play fast. Muppet Racemania, rated E for everyone. Also coming soon, Muppet Monster Adventure.
What's that?
Help Robin save the Muppets in Muppet Monster Adventure.
Well, one of the first Muppet games that piqued my interest was Muppet Racemania for the PlayStation. Although not as good as Crash Team Racing or Mario Kart, I thought it was interesting that a Muppet racing game would be developed. You can choose different Muppet characters and race through different areas that are basically based on the Muppet movies that were released at the time. The only thing that concerned me was that the controllers was a bit slippery, so most of the time I would slip off the track and that would be really difficult. I mean, I liked what they were trying to do in terms of a standard racing game, but I honestly felt that I didn't feel the same joy that I had with Mario Kart, or Crash Team Racing for that matter. I mean, don't get me wrong, I enjoyed the fact that there were many different Muppet characters and vehicles to choose from, and the racetracks and music was nice, but I had some difficulties with the controls for the game. If there's ever a chance a newer Muppet racing game is going to be developed, which probably won't be so likely, but that's just my opinion, I hope they can make a better one with better controls. And maybe have online play too, and have newer content. But I'm getting ahead of myself. In a way, it goes to show that Muppets racing could lead to major mayhem. It really fits the scenario pretty well in this case.
Are you all right, Master Robin?
Wake up again.
Oh, what happened?
The good news is that you, Beaker, Peppy, and myself are unharmed.
Oh, what's the bad news?
Unfortunately, your Uncle Kermit, Miss Piggy, and the others have been transformed into hideous monsters.
Oh, no!
See, we managed to escape, and I found my Uncle Petrie's secret lab.
Another Muppet video game I came across was Muppet Monster Adventure. Now this game was actually pretty neat to play. It basically had the Crash Bandicoot Spiral the Dragon feel to it, plus the controls were pretty easy to use. You can use this glove to beat enemies, or you can spin them away, depending on the situation. Plus you can use different monster forms to access different areas too. The music was pretty decent. I felt that it fit the game's atmosphere. There were some pretty interesting boss fights too. While I don't have much to say about this game, needless to say, it was a fun game to play, and if you happen to be a Muppet fan who also enjoys 3D platformers like this, then Muppet Monster Adventure is just perfect for you. That's all I gotta say on that matter, so moving right along. Now the gameplay footage you're seeing right now is a PC game that I vaguely remember from when I was really young. This is an old computer game called Muppetville. I once played this for computer class, which was one of my favorite subjects back in elementary school. I remember seeing Kermit on the unicycle, and you got to select different mini-games by having Kermit travel to that area. Some of the games I remember fondly was a memory game, a math game, and an alphabet movie game. And one of those games that's like, one of these things not like the other type games, but with shapes, which was pretty cool. Even though it was just an old Apple PC game, I can honestly say it was one of those things that really make the Muppets much more enjoyable. I don't think this kind of nostalgia could get any better than this, especially speaking in terms of old school computer games. Yeah, that's all I have to say on that. So, can we move on to the next one now? Muppet Adventure Chaos at the Carnival. The graphics felt they came from an old PC game, and the gameplay was difficult. When I first came across this, I thought it would have been more like a Mario-esque platformer, but instead we have this. I don't mean to offend anyone here, but the game was just boring. There wasn't much enjoyment, I kept dying a lot. While I can honestly say that the game wasn't really up to my standard, but no hard feeling to those who actually enjoyed the game. Now the first Muppet video game I actually owned was on the PC called The Muppets On With The Show. It was basically set up for The Muppet Show. You could play all sorts of mini games, which was pretty fun. My favorite ones was the Muppet Labs, in which you try to sort things with Beaker, and the Swedish Chef thing was fun when you try to prevent rats from taking the ingredients. I did love the fact that they added increased the difficulty, which made the game a lot more fun and a lot more challenging. The only thing that puzzled me is that I don't think the Muppet voices were right, but I could be wrong in that. The graphics on it were pretty decent. I mean, not too perfect, but still pretty decent nonetheless. So let's move on to the last Muppet games that I know really well.
Look, everybody, the pictures from our cruise are ready. I've made a really cool photo album, too.
Adventure on the high seas, okay? The food, the cannons.
Oh, the shopping!
May I interject something?
So many good times. Hey, look, here's when Animal ran right off the boat to catch his puck.
Water! Now that was funny!
Yeah, those are the things I really like to remember.
You mean our moonlit walks on the deck, Hermie?
Yeah, sure. Those were nice too, Piggy, but I was talking about playing those terrific games. You know, just look at that tomato, huh?
My most favorite Muppet video game is Muppets Party Cruise. That was a really fun game to play. In a way, it was like playing Mario Party. In the game board scenario, you move a Muppet character depending on how many spaces you get, and when you open a colored door, it will lead you to a minigame. Some of the minigames include Slippery When Wet, Looney Unicycles, Tug of War, Cannon Fodder, Short Circuit, Speed Bingo, and my personal favorite, Gumball Drops, just to name a few. I had such fond memories for this game, and it was the first Muppet video game I owned for a game console, more specifically the GameCube. I really enjoyed the soundtrack for the game as well. Most of them had this tropical island style, which makes sense considering that the game takes place on a cruise ship. Plus the game had some interesting unlockables in addition to extra mini-games. I'm not one to spoil anything for you for those who never played it. If you like party games, especially if you're a Muppet fan, or if you like playing with your friends, then this is a good one. Plus it's multiplayer, 4-player to be more precise. So through it all, the Muppets have always been a childhood favorite. I remember watching them a lot when I was a kid, and I'm glad they had some video games based on them, even if some of it weren't really good. In a way, the Muppets can hold their own, and not just video games, but other media as well. And while there hasn't been any new Muppet video games developed in recent years, needless to say, I do hope we get to see new Muppet-related content in the near future. Now that would be a very neat thing. Not just for me, but for anyone who's a die-hard Muppet fan. Well, that's about wrapped us down to the end of another one, but before I go, it's time for Game Wordplay, and the game wordplay for the week is Muppuns, a term used when you use Muppet-related puns, such as, "Gee, I'm in a jam, now to penguin my way out of this," and most of the time it's not really that good. Well, it's not easy being entertaining, but what are you gonna do? Well, I hope you enjoyed this week's episode, and this is Clyde Monster saying, see you next time on Games in Gear!
Take me to your Xbox to play Fortnite today. You can take me to Moisty Mire, but not Loot Lake. I really love to chug jug with you. We can be pro Fortnite gamers. Take me to your Xbox to play Fortnite today. You can take me to Moisty Mire, but not Loot Lake. I really love to chug jug with you. We can be pro Fortnite gamers.
I hope you've enjoyed this week's episode of Games in Gear. If so, then click the like button. And to see more, click that subscribe button. Also, be sure to follow us on Twitter and like us on Facebook. Now we'll continue to get my video game on.